Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you part one of my review of the Tamron 35mm F2.8 Di3, which means it's made for mirrorless, in this case Sony FE. It is OSD, which means it has an optimized silent drive focus motor, and it's M1 to 2, which means it has a 1 to 2 maximum magnification or 1/2 life-size macro capabilities. And so this is one of a series of three new prime lenses that Tamron has announced specifically for Sony FE. And so we have a 20mm, which I haven't yet tested, the 24mm, which I have already done my review of. If you missed that, you can check that out here. And then there is a 35mm option that is here. One thing, by the way, that I have observed is that the 20mm, it starts with an internal code of F050, and then the 24mm is F051. However, the 35mm is F053, so missing is F052, which makes me wonder if Tamron may not announce something like a 28mm in this series down the road, which obviously would be a potentially popular lens also, because there aren't as many of 28mm lenses, but their popularity seems to be coming back a little bit. Anyway, that's just conjecture on my part. Today, in this first part of the episode, we're going to be looking at the build quality, the design, the features, what's here, some of the unique design elements of the lens itself. We're also going to be looking at the autofocus, which has been a little bit of the, if there's going to be any sore spot with this lens, I would say it is there. We're going to break that down and try to give you a balanced observation as to what's going on with autofocus. Our second episode will focus on the image quality, lots of good things to report there, video performance, and giving you a final verdict on the lens and where it kind of fits in the options that are there for you. And so first of all, however, we're going to jump in and we're going to look hands-on and break down some of the details and the feature of the lens. Let's take a look. You'll see, looking at the lens itself, that there is some travel here within the lens housing. As you focus, and I'm just using the manual focus here to demonstrate, you can see that there is some movement within the housing, but at no point does it extend past the internal housing. So it still qualifies as internally focusing, but it is the front element groups that move to create focus here. Now, the lens itself, while being very, very lightweight, it is only 210 grams, or that's 7.4 ounces, and it is 73 millimeters in diameter, which gives it a 67mm front filter thread, which, by the way, is a shared factor amongst all the lenses that Tamron has released for the Sony FE platform at this point, both the zooms and these primes. So as you can see, both the 24 and the 35mm lenses are almost identical in size here. And so, visually they're distinguished above all by the unique lens hood for the 35mm, which gives you almost a anamorphic cutout type look, and also is threaded here so you can use filters right on it. But other than that, they do bear a lot of similarities. And so in this case, the prime is perhaps a hair wider than what it needs to be. The trade-off, however, is being able to share filters across a whole set of lenses is extremely useful. And so 73 millimeters in diameter, 64 millimeters or 2.5 inches in length. So extremely compact here, as you can see, but with a little bit of a squat type design, which frankly a lot of people are fairly partial to. There is a lightweight metal lens mount here. It's not heavy duty, it's just some kind of lightweight, probably aluminum. And then there is a gasket here. There's a total of 4 seals at various points here, and there's a flooring coating on the front to help it to resist fingerprints. And so some nice features for such an inexpensive lens that does help to set it apart from, say, the inexpensive Samyang F2.8 equivalents there. There are 7 rounded aperture blades here. Of course, maximum aperture is f2.8, minimum aperture is f22. There are 9 elements in 8 groups, and that does include a molded glass spherical element, and then an LD, a low dispersion lens element. So some fancy optical elements in there to help with image quality. It also has Tamron's B-bar coatings to help it to be more flare resistant. Now, of course, the killer application, what really sets these lenses apart, is, of course, their ability to focus down very closely. And so here we have the ability to focus down to 0.15 meters or 5.9 inches. Remember, that's from this mark right here, which means that 5.9 inches is somewhere out here. So you can focus down very close to the front element. So you may, in this case, the actual unique lens hood, it's probably not going to cause too much shading there. It doesn't actually shade the front element in any way like that, but what it does do is have filter threads here, and so you can move your threading out or your filters further out. So kind of a unique design there. But, so it's not going to, I don't think, shade, but just remember you are going to get quite close to your subject to achieve that maximum magnification of 0.50 times or a 1 to 2 magnification, which makes this a really, really useful lens as a result of that. And so as you can see, very, very similar to what we saw on the 24mm. They share a lot of design elements. One exception, of course, being the somewhat unique lens hood here that pops on there. If you take the lens hood off, the lenses look almost identical. You put the lens hood on, and it gives it kind of that unique, squared out, almost anamorphic type look. And so that is somewhat unique, and of course you can thread filters on the front of that. So that is kind of the biggest distinguishing quality. I will also note that when it comes to the macro type performance, 35mm is the only focal length of these three that they actually make macro lenses in. I've reviewed other macro 35mm lenses. So you get a little bit less of the perspective distortion when you're up close to subjects. And it's a little bit better, maybe a macro lens. You get a little bit more working distance than any of the other two. And so it certainly has some assets and advantages when it comes to that area. Now, as I noted, kind of one of the sore spots, and I've seen this with early kind of user reviews, is when it comes to the autofocus. As noted, this uses Tamron's optimized silent drive, which optimize and drive I'm willing to give them. Silent, I'm not willing to see that. And here's why. Let's take a look at focus pulls, and you can hear that when you're using the onboard microphone, it's certainly not silent. Let's take a look. So pros and cons there. Obviously the major con is that there's a little bit of that clicking sound whenever it seems like torque is being initiated as you start a focus shift. On a positive note, our focus pulls seem to be they were smooth. You didn't see any obvious stepping really in them. Neither did you see pulsing or settling when it arrived at the subject. So some positives there, however, certainly not quiet. And the other thing that is observed in real world shooting is that it's not super fast. If you're going to make a major focus change, and of course it can be exaggerated in a lens where you can focus down very close. So if I'm going to go from shooting a very close object to shooting a more distant object, what you see is it's not like it's absolutely slow, but what you see is it feels deliberate. You can actually kind of feel focus moving forward rather than a lot of modern lenses. It's just kind of that instantaneous. You go from one focus point to a distant focus point and back and forth. It's not that fast back and forth, and so it's definitely more of a deliberate process going back and forth. Why don't we take a look at focus accuracy? That in itself is a little bit more positive, very good focus accuracy. So let's see how it plays out for stills photography. So while we have some complaints about the focus speed and the noise of focus, I have no complaints about the accuracy of focus. And as you can see from this shot, not only have, and this is obviously composed quite near the edge of the frame, we've got accurate focus, and of course we've got pretty fantastic detail from such a lens. Once again here I shot something in the midst of a tangle of other similar objects and was able to get focus on what I wanted, and you can see focus is very accurate, and it's a pretty great looking shot in terms of the dimensionality. Again, here I was looking to nail this area here, wanting to kind of shoot a shallow depth of field shot, and I was able to get accurate focus where I wanted there. This shot, shooting against a very strong backlighting, which you can see right there beyond the edge of the leaf. And at varying focus distances here, I was able to get accurate focus, great detail, and a really nice looking end result from shooting there in backlit conditions. I also have no complaints about my focus performance when it comes to shooting at landscape distances. This is on the A7R3 here. You can see, of course, there's great detail here, and so that's not necessarily what we're here to determine. But what I can report is that landscape distances, I didn't get any pulsing or hunting, as I can sometimes get with wider angle lenses on mirrorless, and that wasn't the case here. I also got good results when shooting IAF and on humans. As you can see, it's detected the eye well, and we've got good focus there, even despite having glasses on, which can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Also, PET IAF worked very well. As you can see, we've got great focus on the eye there. I've had to raise shadows a little bit, kind of the nature of my dog. Shadows tend to get a little bit crushed, and so I have raised shadows a bit there, but you can see that the focus, PET IAF, worked really well. Another shot of my cat here, and you can see similarly that it's done a great job with the PET IAF of locking on and giving great detail and accurate focus in this shot. So very good results there, and honestly, when it comes to stills photography, I don't really have a lot of complaints. I wouldn't choose this lens for shooting action, and I don't enjoy when it's a major kind of focus shift, but for most, going back and forth, honestly, it's plenty fast. Like, you go back and forth, and if you're not making a major focus shift, it works just fine for that. I was a little less thrilled for it. For example, when shooting this segment, I was using it, trying it out as a part of one of my segments where I was focusing in close on this light that I was reviewing. But as you can see, if I give you the raw footage, which you didn't see in the original review, there's a lot of that clicking and micro pulsing that is taking place. It's just not settling and staying there. And that's part of what I really love. I'm filming on the Tamron 28 to 75mm RXD lens right now, and it's really steady. Like, it doesn't do unnecessary focus shifts, whereas this lens does seem to do a little bit more of that. And so that, to me, is really the weakest point of this particular lens. There's a lot of other strengths, however, that we will explore in our next episode. And at the end of the day, at a price tag of $349, if you go back, even 7 years ago, the autofocus here is actually better than what we got on almost all third-party lenses. But standards have changed, and we have to assess lenses by modern standards. But I will say this, we're a little bit spoiled, and that's a good thing. So stay tuned for part 2, and we'll be coming back looking at that image quality, video performance, other things, giving you a final verdict. In the meantime, if you look in the description down below, I do have an image gallery with lots of image samples and a variety of situations, so take a look at that. And of course, there are buying links if you'd like to purchase one for yourself. Beyond that, there's also linkage to follow me on social media, to become a patron, or to sign up for my newsletter. And if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.